Welcome to QDS version 3.0. Let's take a look at what's new. Our first major addition to QDS version 3.0 is QDS Web, a new interviewing module. Web surveys are programmed in the Design Studio, and you can collect survey data from an unlimited number of respondents. The only requirements are an active internet connection and any device with a major web browser. Because it is browser-based, QDS Web can be run on non-Windows devices including iPhones and iPads, as well as Android smartphones and tablets. One great use of QDS Web is to use it for remote follow-up of surveys after baseline surveys have been completed in an office setting. To see a QDS Web demonstration survey, go to qdsweb.com or see our new QDS Web training videos on the main QDS website. Next, there are a number of new changes in the Design Studio, including an updated toolbar, color-coded element list, format element enhancements, new build options menu interface, options for adding colors to CAPI and ACASI, and of course support for building QDS Web interviews. Now, let's take a look at those changes. The first thing you may notice is that the toolbar and icons have been updated. You can now insert a new element simply by clicking on the icon corresponding to the element you would like to add, such as a data element, information, all the way to report type elements. Also, the element list is now color-coded. This makes it easy to distinguish between element types at a glance. We've also made it much easier to access build options from one centralized location. So if you select Options from the main menu and then Build, you'll now have access to the build options for all product types. Simply click on the plus sign to open up all the options for that type. Note, you can still access all of these by clicking on the Options button during the build setup. In version 3.0, we have added some new build options. The data entry settings now include an option to change the font. Clicking on the Change button will open up the font window, and this is where you can change font, style, size, or script. And then when you're done, click OK to continue. In CAPI and in ACASI, both of these have a new section called Colors that allow you to add new colors to your survey. The options are the same for each, so we'll take a look at ACASI. These new options let you set separate colors for many screen items, including main window, question text, information text, even error messages. For each of these, you can change the item foreground and the item background. We'll start by changing the main window item foreground to dark blue and item background to light blue. Foreground colors are text and other characters, and background is everything behind. You'll always see the new colors reflected in the box here. To change a group of items, you can highlight those you'd like to change in the Screen Items box, and then select your item foreground or background accordingly, and they'll all be updated. When setting colors for buttons, you can change the settings for each button state. For example, when the button is pushed down or it's up. Remember that you will want to have button up, button down, and button disabled all set to different color combinations so that they can be distinguished by the user. We'll make a couple of changes for button up, similar to those changes we made before, and a single change for button down. And then once we're finished, you can see these changes again reflected in the box. To use a background image for the main window, select Main Window under Screen Items, and then select the Use Fill Pattern box. Next, you can select Browse to navigate to your image folder. After navigating to the image folder with the photo you'd like to use, select it and then go ahead and click Open. Note that texture images that are not too busy tend to work best. Once you've completed all your color changes, click OK to continue. Version 3.0 also includes updates to the format element. Previously, you primarily used format elements to reset question numbers. Now you can use these to disable the previous question button and to make adjustments to color and the size of question text box and buttons for ACASI and CAPI surveys. The first new option allows you to disable previous question on next data element. This can be used to prevent respondents from being able to go backwards within a survey at a certain point. You'll notice in the element listing that this new format element, using that option, is positioned right after our collection of ID-related information entered by the staff. So after the point of this format element, the user will not be able to go back in the survey to change these. The next new options are in our next format element. These are to modify, restore size of question text and standard buttons. When this is checked, the Size tab becomes enabled. On the Size tab, you can alter space for questions, as well as shape of the standard buttons by dragging the boxes larger or smaller. For both of these, we're making them a bit larger. Once changed, the new settings will be in place for the remainder of the survey unless they're changed again by another format element. If you have a question or section with particularly long questions, you can make the text box larger. On the other hand, if you have a question or section with many long responses, you can make the text box size smaller to maximize space for responses. There's also a Restore to System Defaults option. Also from the Format Element tab, there's the checkbox to modify and restore color of screen items. When this is checked, the Color tab is enabled. The Color tab can be used to override the current color and image setting for certain screen items. The new settings will be in effect from this point forward unless changed by another format element. Last, but certainly not least, is the new Web Application Build option. That's available from the Build menu. The CAPI and ACASI modules have been updated to support the new Design Studio features we just reviewed, including support for these new display options, main window image, colors, changes in size of text box and buttons, as well as supporting the disabling previous question button. There's also now support for using touch and hold gestures for tablets used without a mouse, and this is applicable for ACASI only. Now we can review how these changes actually look and behave in the ACASI module. They'd look parallel in the CAPI module. Here we can see the new main window image as well as the new background and foreground colors. You will see these colors on the data elements as well. As you recall, we set up our survey, so after entering the first identification items, as we've done here, the previous question button has been disabled on the first information element and the first data element following that instruction. The respondent is prevented from going back now and changing those earlier items. Once we move forward again, the previous question button is now enabled. And we'll continue through the next section of this survey. When we get to the beginning of the next section, you can see the changes to color and display settings that we made in the format element. And you can see these as we proceed through. And then finally, in the last section, we've reset the colors again back to the Windows defaults. This gives you an idea of how these features will work and look in the ACASI and CAPI modules. Version 3.0 Warehouse Manager also has some updates, including an updated toolbar and status icons, export to SPSS 17 format, export to Stata 10 format, and of course to import data from QDS Web. To learn more about that, please see our training video, Working with QDS Web Data Files and Management. Let's take a look in the Warehouse Manager at those changes. When you first open up the Warehouse Manager version 3.0, you will notice the updated toolbar and status icons. The next update is on the main menu. If you go to File, Import, this is how you'll import your data from QDS Web surveys. Again, to learn more, see our tutorial video on Working with QDS Web Data Files and Management. The last two updates include support for our two new export options. And when you go to File, Export Interviews, you'll notice two new options under Save as Type, SPSS 17 format and Stata 10 format. These new options both support longer variable labels, value labels, and text response lengths. Thank you. That concludes our review of the major new features in QDS version 3.0. And as always, for more information, see QDS Online Help, other tutorial videos, or contact us at support@novaresearch.com. Thank you.